you think things will start, because Azimio has been hit by a number of defections, you could call it that, or development meetings, depending on which side you're on.
The late Magoha's funeral in Gem, Luanda, and Kisumu, the reaction to the people there, and I was in all the three places, was Kenyans actually miss Uhuru, which is not surprising because they're not getting anything better right now, and I wouldn't blame them for that. Uhuru, yes, said that he is retired, but he's not tired, which I agree with him because he's not old. He's still a young man. He still has a lot of goodwill for this country. And seeing him coming out and acknowledging that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is his party leader was refreshing for us, because there was a lot of undertone talks that people felt that he had thrown Raila under the bus, and that what happened in the elections was his fault. But so him coming out and people accepting him the way they did, I feel that it's actually a good thing for us as a country, and especially for the people who are clutching at straws and looking for just a simple sign of hope. I don't know if he will still be joining us in the people barazas that we continue to have across the country. He is definitely welcome to do that as a member of Azimio, just like any other member. If he does join, that's okay. If he decides not to, and he decides to follow a different path in terms of just looking out for what is going on in the country, that's also okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We need to take a break, but when we come back, I want to get Mary's thoughts on this headline, The Standard. Prayers versus barazas as experts warn of economic turmoil. And this is sort of the caption that follows that headline. The country has slid back into the campaign period with rallies in the name of prayer meetings and public barazas. So just to get your thoughts on these, are these prayer meetings? We have a prayer meeting today at Nyayo National Stadium intended to pray for to pray for rain, to bring an end to the drought we've been experiencing as a country. Are they essentially, as the Standard suggests, rallies in the name of prayer meetings? On the other side of this break. Welcome back to AM Live in the spirit of Valentine's. Sisi tutajipa raha wenyewe.
Yes.
Given some people have said they are going for mental, which is okay. Pick some chocolate. Oh, I need to open it. Eh?
Oh, thank
Here
you so
go.
much.
We'll just pass it along.
Thank you.
I need your help opening it. I forgot.
At least I know they have a flower. I don't get another one.
And I will keep. Let me give her this one. It looks like it's in better shape.
Yeah.
All right.
So much.
So, with that interlude, let's continue with the conversation. So, Irene, feel free, open the chocolates, pass them along.
I'm just like
Sharing.
keeping them.
Sharing. No, I'm the one who hadn't. I think I didn't remove the wrapper properly. So it's still.
Jerry, do you know how to open this thing?
There we go.
Ooh.
All right, it's open. We shall be enjoying chocolate. As we proceed, we can multitask. Okay, so Mary, I asked, before we went on the break, I asked your thoughts on this headline, on the Standard, which is prayers versus barazas, as experts warn of economic turmoil.
Thank you. First, before I comment, I want to appreciate, thank you for the Valentine gift. What a beautiful way to start the day. Looking at these headlines, prayers versus barazas, I think my thoughts to this, I want to say that prayers are good. Ourselves as Kenya Kwanza, if we look at Kenya Kwanza, in fact, we are privileged, we are lucky as a country this time round that we elected a president and a deputy president who are God-fearing, who are Christians. So for us, we believe that prayer is good for this country, especially at a time when this country is going through a very hard time. We've had challenges, the impact of climate change, the famine ravaging this country. We've had challenges resulting from factors beyond our control, especially the Russia-Ukraine conflict that has caused a lot of havoc in terms of, increasing prices and inflation, in prices of goods going up. So there is need to pray. Even the Bible says, seek God first. As you run, seek God's guidance, seek God's wisdom, and God will help us as we look into ways on how to mitigate the challenges that we are experiencing as a country. So prayer is good. And tomorrow there will be other prayers at the Nyayo Stadium. So I encourage Kenyans to pray and join the prayer sessions, those who are able to join. But when you look at our friends on the other side, there's a meal. They are going around conducting rallies across the country. So we're asking ourselves, what are the rallies for? Probably my sister will tell us what the rallies are for, because we finished the elections and we elected a president and a deputy president, and we were all elected as representatives of the people across the country on the 9th of August. So we have a president, and as we are all aware, the president has just started working. He constituted his cabinet just 3 months ago. We are about to execute the supplementary budget, the very first budget, that will approve expenditure so that we can be able to begin to implement the Kenya Kwanza agenda. So we do not understand what these rallies are all about. And that is why in our prayer sessions, we've been calling for peace. We are calling Kenyans to reject any efforts and attempts to divide and create tension in the country. We are advising Kenyans to unite. Let us unite and focus, get into business to revive our economy, get into business to support the government to deliver on its agenda. Okay. So we don't know what these rallies are all about, and I want to urge my sister when she's speaking next time to tell us what the rallies are all about. Thank you.
All right, Jerry, as Mary has said, prayers are good, but then it's the same Bible that says prayers without action. What do you make of this headline? That because I saw you in a choir singing in Nakuru.
I am very good at singing.
And Kimani Shungwa, I think, called you Gasheri.
Yes.
He said Gasheri. Are those thinly veiled political meetings disguised as prayer rallies, as prayer meetings?
First, let me appreciate for the flower and the chocolates. There's that song by Miley Cyrus called Flowers. She advises people to buy themselves flowers. So I could have gone out and bought myself a really good bouquet, but thank you for this. And only before becoming a politician, I was a recording artist. So I am a very avid, yes, I was. I'm very avid and very driven and passionate about music. Perhaps I'll still pursue it in the near future, if the people of Kirinyaga allow me. They do call me Gasheri, which is an endearing word, because I am young. And I believe that even in the old days, we used to see that if our ancestors felt that the rain season took too long, they would go to Mount Kenya. And Mount Kenya is, or the slopes of Kirinyaga. And they would slaughter a ram. They would make a sacrifice, and they would beg, or they would beseech their ancestors to beckon for rain. So it is not something that has not been done before. It is also something that is biblical. It is something that is in our tradition as Africans. And I don't know what the fuss is about it. There are things which are beyond human understanding. And I am very spiritual in a way that I believe that we have someone who is superior to all of us and who hears when we beckon. So praying, I don't think it should be something that we are discussing. The government is doing as much as it can to ensure that we have food security in the nation. We've seen the president introduce the subsidized fertilizer. I think I've seen in one of the papers, I don't know whether it's the Standard or the Nation, that we've distributed about 63,000 bags of the same on the e-voucher platform. And at the end of the day, these are not public rallies where people are supposed to politic, but politicians do what they do best. You know, you give someone a microphone and they're bound to politic, because it's just like you know, you're given the platform and you will be speaking like a news anchor. So at the end of the day, let us not really drag it down like, why are we praying? It is a good thing to pray. It is a good thing to have a president who believes in the power of prayer and a deputy president who believes and supports the same. And they're doing as much action that the Bible speaks of as they can. And my friend Irene, I believe it is also okay if they feel that they need to have the public rallies and public participation on the state of the economy, because then they are putting the government on check. In regard to something you said about, you know, whether people feel that they're threatened now by the entrance of Uhuru Kenyatta,
yes,
the former president.
Headline.
I mean, these people had the deep state, as I termed it. You know, my competitor who was in Jubilee kept threatening us that they were going to drag us down and win the election on the power of the deep state. So why would the president feel threatened? They did not defeat us at the time. They had the government machinery. They had a sitting president. Now we have the presidency. The president is not worried about that thing. It is a non-issue to him.
Okay. Irene, there was a question posed to you by Mhesh Mary. Her question is it not hypocritical for Azimio to cry about the cost of living, yet keeping the country in an electoral cycle, as opposed to focus on development?
You know, first of all, again, let me appreciate the flower. I don't know if I'll get another one later. The first one that I've already received. But people don't think us politicians also want these things. They think we're hardcore. It warms our hearts. And Olive, I think you should allow me to speak after every one of my colleagues here, because I'm outnumbered. The number of times it is, where is Catherine?
we will bring her and find out how far she is.
Yeah, but just to respond to my senior Mary here, in terms of, and I wish she would take her time to just watch one or two barazas that we have, like we take our time to watch the prayer sessions, the rallies disguised as prayer sessions, if I must say, that they do have. Because politicians are politicians, as Wakil Njeri says. And anytime you give a politician a mic, it doesn't matter whether they're in church, in a public rally, or in a market space, they will still speak politics. And in these prayer sessions, we've seen them speak politics, led by the deputy president and the president himself. The barazas, in my view, have been good. In fact, I think we should have started them earlier than this, because the conversations that we've been having with Kenyans, and any time I go out there, I take my time to speak to the people around me and just to hear what they're saying. And you can tell that the country is grappling at the moment. Cost of living is high. And I wish the government could just stop making excuses and saying and blaming the previous regime, and just look for solutions. Going back to the fuel subsidy issue, which I still think that that the government should do something about it, because you cannot cut off fuel subsidies, because what happens is that it affects the people who are the consumers of these products. And right now, Olive, if you go with 1,000 shillings to the supermarket to purchase foodstuff, you wouldn't even be able to buy beyond just stuff for breakfast. So you can imagine the Kenyans out there, and the numerous of them, who are living below the $1 a day budget line. It's crazy. Life is crazy. And so these barazas are helping us to have conversations with Kenyans. And I like what we did on Sunday, because we first went to Mundika Catholic Church. Our party leader and principal spoke, and they all said, we are not in church to do politics. We will do our politics out there, but we are here to worship with the people of Busia and touch base with them. And then when we go out there, we will do our politics there. So as Njeri said, there's nothing wrong with praying. Praying is absolutely fine with us, because we do need spiritual intervention, as it is in this country, for things to start looking up, for even our leaders to start having wisdom to deal with matters in the correct way. But at the same time, you cannot stop people from having a conversation with people. Don't fear barazas, Honorable Mary Emase. I wish you would just watch one of them and see the reactions from Kenyans.
Are they
of the
genuinely barazas as well? Because you did say that the prayer meetings are thinly veiled rallies, yes. But are what you're holding really barazas? Because the communication appears to me, at least, was watched. I watched Kamkunji, Kamkunji 1 and 2, because there was the Kamkunji constituency and Kibra constituency. I followed you, Manzoni. I followed you. Okay, Manzoni maybe was a PG. Yeah. I did follow the conversation in Busia and Kisi on Monday. Are they public barazas? Really public barazas? Because the conversation appears to be one way, from the podium to the masses.
No, it's not one way, because you see what goes live. If you look at these barazas, is you will see when they start going live when the senior politicians speak. But even before, like Luanda, we were in Luanda for 2 hours before our principals joined us, and during that time we were engaging the local Mwananchi and picking energies from them and listening to what the things that they were saying. And most of them they kept repeating that njaa iko, shukisha bei ya chakula, because those are the things that people are going through right now. So the conversations do happen with the people. And another thing that we usually have, even before the leadership comes to speak to the people, we do have our youth leaders engage in a baraza, in an actual county hall setup, to speak to the young people in the different areas before we go there, and get to know what it is that the people are talking about, what it is they are suffering from. And the language is the same across the whole country. Bei ya chakula iko juu, bei ya unga iko juu. They need solutions to these issues.
All right. Yeah. And I'd like now to move us along to the budget, because one of the big things you'll be handling in this second session is, of course, Mheshimiwa Mary has talked about the supplementary budget estimates one of 2022-2023, and then, of course, the budget policy statement has been released already by Treasury. So the budgeting process for even 2023-2024 is well underway at this point. So today we are holding prayers to address for spiritual intervention, right? In the hopes that the heavens will open and the rain will pour. I mean, just how what? how wonderful would it be if you prayed and then it rained? But it would be quite something.
Yeah.
So we have Kenyans are dealing with drought. In fact, if you just look at the front page of the headline image on the front page of the Standard is a child with their mouth around the spout of a tap. So this speaks to water shortage. This speaks to people are thirsty and people are hungry. And then I look back at a story that was done on February the 8th, published by The Nation, and this is the headline: how Ruto's government spent 4 billion shillings on luxuries after poll win. And it's written by Peter Mburu. I can look at the first few paragraphs just to give you an idea of what it's about. The Kenya Kwanza administration splurged hundreds of millions of shillings while approving the spending of more than 4 billion shillings on issues unrelated to development at the office of the president, even as its leadership claimed to have found empty state coffers. On November the 23rd, 2022, upwards of 264 million shillings was wired to Deputy President Rigathi Gachagwa's office to, quote, implement urgent planned activities on the recurrent side. The disbursement was part of the 1.59 billion shillings that the National Treasury approved to be spent by the Deputy President's office on September the 21st. A mini budget document shows the supplementary budget, one of 2022-2023, shows that Treasury approved expenditures amounting to 127.5 billion shillings by ministries, departments and agencies between July and December 2022, out of which 66.4 billion shillings has already been sent to respective state entities. Since the election of President William Ruto, among spending items Treasury approved are 2.6 billion on State House affairs in November, 45 million shillings for hospitality by the Cabinet on January 31st, and 840 million shillings for use by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in September to facilitate temporary committee and other operating expenses, all recurrent. The picture this paints is that the Kenyans who are suffering, and then, quote, we have the fat cats, right, for whom it is business as usual. Are we living in two different Kenyans? Does the government, does the executive appreciate what Kenyans are going through?
Thank you. I think you will, let me start by saying we, as a budget committee, our role is to discuss and to review the budget estimates. And also our role is to investigate and inquire into all expenditures and the control systems therein. So the process has just started, and the whole of this week, next week, we shall be interrogating the estimates in the supplementary. We shall be demanding answers. We'll be playing our oversight role. So those are some of the issues that we are looking into. So what I would want to say is, a lot of expenditure was incurred from July to date. The Ruto administration, of course, took over immediately after he was inaugurated in September. And what the supplementary budget basically looks into is to approve those expenditures that have been authorized under Article 223. It looks into, these are expenditures that were incurred by National Treasury without the approval of the National Assembly, either because funds allocated to certain items were insufficient, or there were those urgent expenditures that were unforeseen, that had not been appropriated for. So the law allows them to incur those expenditures, then seek approvals 2 months, within 2 months from the date of spending that money. Or if there are any withdrawals from the contingency fund, they are supposed to seek those approvals. If Parliament is in recess, like the way we were in recess, then immediately we resume. We should be able to do that, to prosecute that within 2 weeks. So what I would want to say, what I want to tell Kenyans, as Parliament, Budget Committee will be interrogating all those expenditures. There are so many of them. We have expenditures that were incurred even on 5th of August, 4 days to the election, and we're asking ourselves, what was the urgency? There was also money that has been paid for subsidy, unga subsidy, the fuel subsidy. And we are asking ourselves as the budget committee, where was this unga? Because some of the MPs, some of us did not feel this, did not see unga within the shops in our constituencies. So where was this? So we will be interrogating all this going forward as we look at all the estimates that are presented before us. Thank you.
All right, and Jerry, what do you make of this? Because it doesn't paint a very flattering picture, because Kenya Kwanza repeatedly reminds us that we're in dire straits where drought is concerned. The Deputy President has asked Kenyans to contribute towards drought relief funds. And then we read stories such as this, that there is no, what do I call it, no restraint where the executive is concerned on expenditure. And yet Kenyans are facing more taxes moving forward. What do you make of that?
I wonder who the fat cat is. I'm certain that is not me. I saw some headlines on media that members of parliament were increasing their salaries. And I can tell you without any doubt that with the members who are seated here, there's no increment that we're pushing for. And we've not even had any discussions on increasing our salaries. So I believe some things sometimes are misreported. And like my colleague has said, they will interrogate what will be presented to them as a committee. And the committee is headed by the very able chair, who is very, very well grounded and someone who I believe is solid and has the interest of Kenyans at heart. So at the end of the day, let us not sensationalize these matters, because I think it would do great injustice to misreport. Let us wait for the budget to be tabled. Let us see what Parliament does with that. I do not want to preempt, but what I can admit is unfortunate is that we've been unable to cut down on expenditures. And I don't think even this is a thing for something that could be maybe across party lines, because it's a government. And we want to do as much as we can for Kenyans and cut down costs as much as we can, which is something that the president promised, which has seemed impossible or near impossible, given that also the previous government incurred some costs, like my colleague has said, which now this government has to cater for or to pay for, because government runs in perpetuity. So let us wait, let us not preempt, and I believe that we will offer solutions to Kenyans in the long term.
Okay.
And just to add, the president did put in place austerity measures to actually save some money. So 300 million was saved, and that money has been actually reallocated to other urgent expenditures. So basically, what will also be happening in the budget, in the supplementary budget process, will just be rearranging, readjusting areas that are of more urgent, like famine, mitigating famine. Those are some of the areas that money will be going into, so as to kind of address that situation.
All right.
Yeah.
Irene, speaking of what Hesh is talking about, the 300 billion that was intended, rather the Kenya Kwanza administration told us they will be cutting back on in this budget. Debt hit the 9 trillion mark in December. The Parliamentary Budget Office projects that by, is it June? It'll hit 9.44 trillion Kenya shillings. We've read stories here on forex reserves going below the 4-month. The recommended 4-month cushion. And then if we look at the supplementary budget, yes, there have been cuts, but I'm no financial expert. Let me just get that out right off the bat, or an economist. But what I've read from those who are more learned than me on the subject is that actually the development budget has been cut, but the current expenditure has gone up. Are Kenya Kwanza's actions meeting their words?
Only let me speak as also an accountant, because I'm an accountant by profession, and it's true, because from what I've seen, I sit in the Communication, Innovation and Information Committee, and yesterday we were going through the supplementary budget cuts, and for me, what really bothers me is that the Kenya Kwanza administration is an administration that has told us that they, sorry, that their focus is on the bottom-up economic strategic approach. But that's not the case on the ground, because if you go line by line on some of the proposals they have in terms of cuts, number one, studio machinani has been reduced by a total of 90%. This is one area that is supposed to assist the local artists in the different constituencies across the country, so that they're able to even record their work and be able to market it out there. Number two, the constitutional incubation hubs, they've also had a significant cut. So my question is, why are we reducing so much in terms of the development sector and not looking at the expenditure? Because that's where their focus should be. It bothers me that 4 billion is being spent on what I term as luxury. Yeah, even the prayer sessions that they do have, the amount of money that gets spent on a weekly basis is a lot, because by the time you're having the entire executive traveling, governors, MPs, you're sure there's going to be quite a lot of money being spent on that. So what I just want to urge, and I'm looking forward to the next 2 days, because even now when I live here, I'm still going back to the departmental committee meeting, which I sit throughout the whole day, because mine is to just look at these issues line by line. What are these issues that we are cutting? Because it's okay to cut when you don't have sufficient funds, but what priority are you giving some of these things? The priority cannot be that expenditure gets to be covered, and then the development part of it does not get anything done about it. So Kenya Kwanza needs to review what their priority in this country is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We need to take a break. And Jerry, you have a response. We'll come back with your response on the other side of this break. We'll also be getting into some of the proposals made by the president, including having cabinet secretaries make presentations before the entire House of Parliament and not just the committees. How would that change? How would that be a game changer for you guys sitting in Parliament, as well as the other proposals to do with 2/3 and to do with CDF being entrenched in the Constitution, and beyond that, the office of the leader of the opposition? It's some of what you're considering, including the privatization bill that went through public participation. The public participation ended last week on the 7th of February. So we get their thoughts on that on the other side of this break. Welcome back to AM Love. We are looking at Parliament's entry. We've just gotten into the budget. Njeri, you had a response to Irene's presentation?
My good friend Irene has mentioned something that I'd like to clarify on the prayer sessions that we hold in various counties. MPs and governors are not funded by the executive. That is something that I believe is misleading information. And she said that they do barazas. Barazas, I would term them in English maybe to be public participation. So I expect that it is actually a conversation between the leaders or politicians and the members of the public. And what we have seen, Olive, and I'd like you to take an initiative to actually follow and see whether they they do have those sessions they claim to have prior to the public rallies. Because I believe, and that is why we're really pushing for the office of the opposition leader. It is not fair for entitled individuals to feel that they are owed something every time they lose in a general election, and obviously to hold these rallies because they are looking for nusum kate, because that is what we have seen in the previous regimes, and that is a fact. If it has been seen in the past that is the traction of it, then that is what I would say Raila Amolo Odinga is angling at. So let us not mislead the nation. And the prayer sessions, like we've said, I do not believe it should be an issue that should even be discussed as we speak. And Irene said that we have...
My question as a follow-up to that would be, I saw a video of some guy who was driving around Nakuru and shooting video of different buses from all over the country. The governors and MPs may not be funded by the executive, but does it not come out of the taxpayers' budget regardless?
Which taxpayers' budget?
The governors have to travel with their security, so there's fuel involved. The vehicles, the buses, presuming that was the actual picture.
Yeah, the executive. When the president
there's
travels,
still
he has
money
to be
that is
funded.
paid, isn't there?
You saw the buses, Olive. And you believe that they were transporting people for the prayers.
I'm saying presuming.
Yeah, we are presuming.
But even if we were to take that out of the equation, you had governors from the Rift, correct?
I went there with my own money. I am paid a salary by the government, just like you work and you paid a salary. And how you decide to spend it, perhaps maybe you're going to meet with your friends. I chose to spend that fuel money to go to Nakuru for a prayer session.
Okay.
Which is okay for anyone to decide. And also, she mentioned Studio Mashinani. I've never heard of it. I don't know whether my colleague has. It is not in Kirinyaga County. If it was benefiting some individuals, perhaps it was.
Actually, I believe Kirinyaga County were protesting because they wanted Studio Mashinani brought there. So you're saying you use money out of your own pocket?
Yes.
When you go for these prayer meetings?
It's just like the way you decide to use, your own money to perhaps fuel to go visit a friend, or have a vacation somewhere.
That's not the case.
Do you go with a bodyguard? Do you go with a bodyguard?
No. I did not have
a
my
driver.
Bodyguard there. My driver works full time for me, so it's not something that I can say that on that particular day, if I am going to a church in Kirinyaga County, he's going to accompany me there because he has the working days and he has the off days. So going to Nakuru was not an extra cost at any given point for the government or for the taxpayer.
Because I watched Narok and I watched Nakuru, and I saw the deputy president, call out different people in different, like in where was it? In Nakuru, for instance, the vice chair of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission was told stand up, the PS, the CSs. There was a show of might of these people have come from your area, and we will add more. And then the same thing in Narok, people were called up, like this person is from your area. You see how the government how the Kenya Kwanza administration came through for your community. Are you saying there is no taxpayer money spent?
What I said is that I traveled privately. I expect that I do not believe there was any money from the taxpayer that was being spent. It's just like the way you would travel to any occasion or a wedding. Surely.
No,
I mean, we all have social occasions that we travel to.
MPs can travel with their own cars and their own bodyguards and security, but for executive, because by the time you're using a GK, you can't fuel a GK with your own money. It has to be fueled in specific fuel stations, and it's government money. So by the time the executive is out there traveling and you're seeing PSAs, you're seeing CSAs, the president, the deputy president, that is definitely not from their from their own pockets. It's the taxpayers' money. And that is my issue right there. We are spending so much money organizing and going for these prayer sessions, and yet we are also complaining that we need to cut down on expenses because our budget is bleeding. Yeah, and some of these bleeds, you can actually block them if you want. You can block some of the expenses that you have and cut off some of the expenditures that you have, instead of going into the development part of the budget to try and cut it off. That's not fair. And when you're doing these cuts, the cuts are up to 90% in some cases. Like, for example, and I gave the example of Studio Mashinani. It's something that has been progressively being done by the ICT side of the CII department, and from a budget of 51 million and it's cut off by 48 million. What are you telling Kenyans? That it is okay to reduce the amount of money you're spending on development that is meant to help them, and you'd rather increase and not touch too much on the money that you're spending on expenditure? That's not a bottom-up economic approach at all.
Right. What is the
Allow me to set the record correct on this issue. First, I want to comment on the issue of the prayer. The prayers did not start today. We've been going around visiting our people, holding these Thanksgiving prayer sessions on our own volition. It is voluntary. Our president does not even demand or make it mandatory for any member of parliament, MCA, women rep, or governor to attend. It is purely voluntary. So when we go for these prayer sessions, we spend our own resources, personal resources. Personally, I went with my driver and with my security. I give them an allowance myself for their lunch, and if we are, even when we go for other workshops, for example, where our staff are not funded, we take care of them from our own pockets. So the issue of government resources here is neither here nor there. Government officers in both sides of the divide, even before the Ruto administration came into power, we've seen leaders of Azimio carrying out rallies, going with their public, government vehicles, the GKs and all that. So really, let's not mislead the public on this one. And just to coming to the issue of Studio Mashinani, allow me to disabuse this notion that the reduction on expenditure did target only development expenditure. When reductions are made on expenditure, we look at key priority areas. It might be important, but in terms of priority, probably it is an activity that can wait. So when these reductions are done, there are a number of factors that are looked into. So, for example, yesterday as budget committee, we oversight the office of the Controller General. And we're looking at the expenditure and the items that were actually affected by the reduction. One of the items that was affected by the reduction is the proposed expenditure on employment, recruitment of new staff. Whereas it was important, but it was shelved to be considered probably in the next financial year, considering the state in which the country is. Issues of debt, we will even be looking at debt management strategy, that we can be able to manage and while at the same time looking at the strategies on how to increase our revenue collection so that we're able to pay our debt and run this country at the same time. Okay. So I want to really disagree with my sister. The reduction on expenditure did cut across, and when we shall be looking and reviewing and scrutinizing and investigating the entire supplementary budget, you will be able to clearly see and understand that these reductions in expenditure are actually cutting across all ministries and the ministerial departments in government. So I think that's what I wanted to just ask.
I'll give you opportunity to comment on that, and then also I want us to look at drought, because by the time you guys are going on recess, the situation was not quite what it is today. The National Drought Management Agency, in its January assessment, said 4.35 million Kenyans are in need of relief assistance. We saw senators from arid areas areas hard hit by drought, because now it's even, I mean, the drought has impacted counties. How many is it? 22 counties beyond the typical, northern, former northern province counties. So the deputy president the other day at an event, I think it was for Lions, said the figure now is 5.3. Not even 4.35 as the National Drought Management Agency put it, but actually 5.3 million Kenyans require relief assistance. And so he called for people to donate and contribute towards assisting our fellow Kenyans. So, but before you get into that, Njeri, my question would be, beyond asking for assistance, part of what the senators have called for is that for drought to be declared a national emergency. How does that change things? Does that now trigger greater donor funding? And as legislators, is there a role you play or you can play to help assist these Kenyans in need? But you will address that. We're talking about the development budget versus recurrent expenditure and all that. This is the Business Daily from 3 days ago, and they highlighted some of the projects that are facing cuts. 19 mega projects hit as 66.8 billion shilling China foreign loans cut. At least 19 major projects have taken a hit from tweaks in government spending after foreign lenders cut funding for the year ending June by at least 66.8 billion. Roads and energy infrastructure projects are the most affected by the funding cutbacks by global financiers such as the World Bank and the Africa Development Bank, forcing President William Ruto's government to shelve or delay their construction. The Kamburu-Embu Thika transmission line, for example, has been docked 4.5 billion shillings, one of the largest cuts from Chinese lender, the China Exim Bank. The construction of the 1,045 kilometer 500 kV high voltage direct current transmission line that seeks to connect Kenya and Ethiopia grids, known as the Eastern Electricity Highway Project, has lost 3.15 billion from the Africa Development Bank. The World Bank funding for a project that seeks to increase power access through cutting construction charges has shrunk by 2.9 billion, while the Gilgil Thika Konza 400 kV transmission line lost 2.3 billion. Kenya has been relying on foreign loans to upgrade existing power lines and increase the supply and quality of electricity to meet a surge in demand. So wide-ranging cuts, given the state of the economy as it is now. You can find this if you go to Nation e-paper, e-paper.nation.africa. You can even find archived publications, be it the Daily Nation, Taifa Leo, whatever you want to find, you can find it there. But on the question of, I'll bring us back now to drought. If I'm to rely on NDMA, 4.35 million Kenyans in need of relief assistance, the Deputy President put it at 5.3 million. Is there a role legislators play in this?
First, let me respond to my good friend Irene on Studio Mashinani. Like I've said, what is the impact of it? Was it felt like perhaps in my county, Kirinyaga people, did they benefit from it? Did they enjoy it? We've seen now we have the Hustler Fund, and that is directly accessible to any person. And in regards to the drought situation, Olive, it is an unfortunate situation, and it is very worrying. I was in Kirinyaga County on Saturday donating relief food to the elderly persons and the PWDs, and I can tell you, you could see that the people are worried because the rains have not been coming. They told me they've planted for, I think, 3-4 seasons without any bountiful harvest. When I was growing up, I remember around mid-Feb to April, we'd have a season of rain, and it was just rain every day. You would be certain of it. But now you find that we're not even sure whether the rains will even be coming, even as this month ends and drags on. So it is an unfortunate situation, and I always say that relief food is not a sustainable solution. Like I've said, just like the subsidies, it is a band-aid. It is having a gunshot wound and using a band-aid to treat that. It is not something that can be sustainable on a long-term basis. What we need is we need to think about protecting our water catchment areas. We've seen the president address this. We've seen him drive the agenda for planting of trees to protect water catchment areas. We also need to think about rain harvesting. We always see that when we have the rains, the floods everywhere, and then you find now we have the dry season and people are suffering. So can we harvest and harness these this resource that is very core for the survival of the human race and the Kenyan people in general, and to ensure food security. We also need to think in terms of agriculture, irrigation farming. You know, we can no longer now wait for the rainy seasons, and that is why the president is very keen, and one of his priorities is water. We will be constructing more dams in Kirinyaga County, I believe 3 more, to ensure that our farmers at least have something that they can use to farm when the rains are no longer here. And that is what Parliament can do. It can support the government in having frameworks that ensure that we have food sustainability in the long term. For donors, of course, we'll have more donors, and it is a good thing at the moment, at least to give them some sort of relief. But I do not believe that that is what we should be angling at, because at the end of the day, like I say, we want solutions that will stay, not solutions that cannot be sustainable.
Okay. Irene, President William Ruto has been very vocal on the subject of climate change. He set a target for tree planting. He keeps talking about 100 dams will be built, big dams and smaller ones, many smaller ones. But even when he appeared before the UN for his inaugural address to the United Nations General Assembly, after his election, it was a subject you could tell he's taken a keen interest in. So long term, there is a plan. In the short term, is there more we could be doing?
Olive, I think there's more we could be doing, because in my view, what we're doing right now is just having knee-jerk reactions to the issues that we do have. Because, and I agree with Wakil Njeri when she says, when you're giving relief food, you're not really solving the solutions that you have. The problem we have in this country is that we have technocrats who come up with very good policies, fantastic policies. I don't think anyone else in this world can even compete with Kenyans on that. But when this happens and they're passed and they're put into very beautiful booklets, they just gather dust in the shelves because implementation does not happen. So what I think should be one of the quick solutions that the government should do is, number one, drought needs to be declared a national emergency, because of the number of people that are affected on a daily basis and the number of counties that are affected. In the past, it's always been the ASAL counties that have been affected by drought, but this is now taking a bench into more areas in this country. And one of the solutions that we do have and that needs adequate funding is the construction of dams. For example, there's a dam in the area of Keroka in Kisii County, whose implementation and the fast tracking of that project has stalled. Yet this is a dam that could actually has the capacity to supply water to additional neighboring counties like Bomet, Narok, Kericho, and ensure there's sustainability in that area. That is why we need to focus, because at the tail end of resolving any drought issues is water. Yeah, because when you have water, then you can do a lot of things in that space. When it comes to climate change, Olive, and again, the other thing that disturbs me is that we all talk about climate change, but we don't have climate change action in place. Mm-hmm. For example, I'm in the process of bringing a bill in Parliament on the environment, and this bill, one of the things that it's meant to cure is, for example, in Nyamira County, we did have 11 rivers. That is a country that it literally rains every day. Mm-hmm. We had 11 rivers, but right now we only have 2 rivers. Why? Because people have planted eucalyptus trees along our wetland areas. And one of the things that eucalyptus tree does is that its root sucks water. So it ends up drying the rivers. Yeah, and the solution that my bill is supposed to bring is to replace the eucalyptus trees with either bamboo trees or avocado trees that do not affect the wetland spaces. So what we need to do is come up with policies and bills and laws that are actually enabling us to have climate change action. Because we've talked about climate change for very long, but we now need to have action in place. So as Parliament, that is one of the things that we can do. yeah, that once this is declared a national emergency, then it means that it takes priority in terms of the solutions that we are coming up with and the solutions that the government is giving its people to make sure that this issue is resolved.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Mheshimiwa Mary, I'd also like to get your thoughts on this subject.
Yeah, yes, thank you. I think we all agree that drought is real. It's here with us. The situation is dire. And you'll agree with me, the president recognizes that fact. And this situation calls for interventions. And it calls for short-term interventions, medium-term interventions, and long-term interventions. We cannot sit back and watch Kenyans die because we're saying we're not solving the problem by giving food to these people. So giving relief food is an immediate intervention. We've seen the president going out lobbying for resources from donor funding, even asking well-wishers. One time the deputy president was asking even well-wishers who can be able to contribute to this kitty so that we can make sure in areas, especially the asset regions where people are dying, they're able to get food as an immediate mitigation measure. In the medium term, we've heard the president say we cannot continue to put a subsidy on consumption because it's unsustainable. We will not be able to bring down the prices of goods, the prices of food, by continuing to put subsidy on production. Eventually we will run out, we will not even have money for subsidy. And that would mean we would go back to borrow, thereby worsening the situation as it is. So by recommending a transfer of subsidy to production, where we are supporting the farmer, giving farm inputs like the subsidized fertilizer, then we will be able to encourage production, an increase in production, which in the long term will itself manage the prices of goods. When we have more, we have surplus, then that in itself stabilizes the prices of foods. So in the long term, now we can talk about the dams. In the long term, we can talk about the legislation, amendments that would support, issues around climate change. In the long run, we will looking at also how we can have rain-fed agriculture, so that we are not only, so that we not only dependent on rain, we have other mitigations, irrigation, providing the infrastructure that would allow irrigation so that we have food throughout the year. And we are even, and the president said in another 5 to 10 years, we should be exporting food out of the country so that we get foreign exchange.
Okay.
Having said that, Parliament has a big role to play. We will be supporting the president in terms of looking into proposed legislation that will allow Kenya Kwanza government to actually implement most of these interventions and proposals. So we need to align that to the constitution, to the acts and various legislations as may be necessary, including considering the amendment that is being proposed by my sister here. Thank you.
All right. Do you have something to add so that I can move us to the next thing?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have a well-detailed study on the biophysical impacts of eucalyptus planted near the river sources or the rivers themselves. And we also have policy regulation in place that outlaws the planting on the same, of the same. And I believe what we have, Oliver, what we lack is the implementation bit. You find that NEMA is underfunded, understaffed, and they're not able to ensure that they have implemented the policy regulations that we have in place. So it is not an issue of legislation really per se. I can tell you as a lawyer, we have the most progressive laws in the entire world. But what we lack is a disconnect between implementing the same and also civic education to farmers so that they can know. You find that perhaps someone might just innocently plant the same because they do not know of the same. But have we invested in civic education in terms of climate action plan? Like my friend Irene has said, I believe we need a really certain written framework and a climate action plan that is set also to target the entire population, not just a few elites and meetings here and there on climate action change. We need to target the entire population so that they can know the effects of this. And every time I take an initiative, when I talk to my people, I tell them, you need to plant trees, you need to protect our rivers. So do we have that? Can we also actualize that as a way of also engaging them on a long-term sustainability?
All right. So just let me bring people up to speed on the drought situation in the country, and then I'll invite you as we wind up to, tell us what are you looking forward to in this second session of the 13th Parliament. So the United Nations and partners have called for $472.6 million to respond in 2023 as the drought in Kenya deepens. Let me just convert that, right? Because it'll make, for some, the picture will become clearer that way. So that, how much is that? $472 million in Kenya shillings. Okay, here we go. 46. Sorry, 4? It was 427. 1, 2, 3. Oh, what have I written? 427 sets, 2 sets of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to Kenya shillings. In full disclosure, I got a C+ in math. It's not my strength. But an A in English, so aha. All right, so that is how many? This is what? 53 billion? Because it's 3 sets of zeros?
Yeah.
53 billion, yeah? Accountant in the building. All right. So the United Nations and partners have called for 53 billion to Kenya shillings to respond in 2023 as the drought deepens. Senators, as we mentioned earlier, let me just open the one for the nation.africa since Tuko Nation Center. Senators want states to declare drought a national disaster.
Yep.
5 and let me click on the ntvkenya.co.ke link, our website. More than 5.3 million Kenyans are facing starvation in 31 counties, and that is according to the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. He had earlier spoken about, we'll ask Kenyans to donate drought cash via PayBill, and this, I believe, was in November. All right, so I will leave the drought question there. And perhaps you could tell us, starting with you, Irene, what are you looking forward to in this second session?
All right, so what I'm looking forward to, Olive, as I had already said earlier, and I'd just like to make a clarification to Wakili Njeri. Number one is my amendment bill to the Environment and Conservation Bill that is currently at the budget desk for them to check if it's a money bill or it's not a money bill. What I want to clarify to her is, yes, we do have an environment bill, but it ends at part 5 of G. What I'm introducing is a clause that then enables us to get rid of anything, whether it's man-made or naturally grown along our wetlands, so that it doesn't affect our rivers. So that's what the intention of this bill is, and I know she's going to support me.
I'll be supporting it.
Thank you
very
very much. But looking at the figures we are dealing with and the money that is coming through, and yes, once this is declared a national emergency or a national disaster, then it means that we can have interventions both locally and internationally to be able to resolve this issue. This kind of money will enable us not to deal with these issues on a knee-jerk reaction basis of just giving food to the people suffering and then sit back and wait for the problem to come up again. My prayer is that we can actually use this money to invest in construction of dams, because that is the direction that we need for us to be able to ensure that there's sustainable water, and that our people, especially in the ASAL community, because they are not agriculture, it's not an agricultural zone. So you're not going to start telling them to now start planting food and all that. But again, they don't have the soil for it. But studies have been done to show that we can actually have hydroponic irrigation systems in those areas. By hydroponic, I mean that using the pumice rocks that are found in the Asal area, you can actually grow foodstuff from it. There are people who are doing that project right here in Kiambu, using the same pumice stones, and they've been able to show that you can actually grow food out of it. So what I'd want as a country to do is actually take our time and educate our people on how to grow their own foodstuff. That they cannot only rely on relief food and the government taking food their direction, but that if this money is actually put into good use, and we do get these dams, and we do get access to water, that it can actually be put into proper use. And also, again, number 2 is that we plant trees, because this is affecting us. We do not have enough water catchment area. That's the issue we are grappling with in the Mau area, because long time when you used to drive down to Kisii, the forest coverage in this country was fantastic. It's not there right now, and this is going to affect our children and our children's children, because we do not have enough water catchment area in this country. And we just need to encourage people to grow trees, as many as they can. Just don't grow the eucalyptus trees that are along our rivers. You can grow them, they said 500 meters away from our river sources, and any other type of trees, because they do help. So we need to start thinking of not only the short-term solutions, but also long-term, because in the future, our children are going to be affected by the decisions that we are making right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Honorable Mary Amase, what are you looking forward to in this second session?
Going into the second session, coming from the recess, and you know we've had a very robust induction. So we are going in as a strengthened parliament with a lot of knowledge, and I'm expecting a very robust and interactive parliament. And I know top on our agenda, like I mentioned earlier, is to prosecute the supplementary estimates. We have the debt management strategy, and we have the budget policy statements, which is going to set the macroeconomic aspects of what we're expecting, putting key government priority areas, aligning it to the Vision 2030 and to the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto. But more interestingly are the bills that we are expecting on the floor of the House. There is the bill to anchor CDF, the National Government Constituency Development Fund, the Affirmative Action Fund, and the Senate Oversight Fund. And also, more importantly, I'm looking forward to the 2/3 gender bill, which has proved very elusive over the years. We want to make sure, we want to be on record as the 13th parliament, being the parliament that did ratify and approve the 2/3 gender rule.
Okay.
So, and also, there is the bill to amend Chapter 9 of the Constitution to create the office of the leader of opposition. So this will be a very interesting session at the 13th Parliament.
All right. Jerry, how about you?
And before I conclude, I am also looking forward to present a bill to amend the Public Finance Act to introduce a clause on discipline on financial management, especially touching on counties and national government MDAs. So that's like CDF. In CDF, we do not have anything called, we hardly have any pending bills. So that if you have been given resources, you must spend them prudently. If you are taking over during transition, we're experiencing a lot of challenges where another governor comes in, the other one has retired, and the one who comes in decides not to pay pending bills. Yet we have our contractors suffering. Some of them have lost lives. Some of them have committed suicide. They are depressed. And they are the bottom, the real hustlers on the ground who are building the economy. So I want to bring an amendment. Actually, I'm lifting it from the repealed Public Finance Act of 2009 to the current one, so that we can, I will seek the indulgence of members and their support. We approve it so that we bring to an end the trend, the history of pending bills in this country.
All right, and I look forward to interrogating those proposals more in depth in future shows.
Yeah.
Banjari, how about you?
I just said that a great leader thinks about the next generation, not the next election. And I insist, dams, and more dams. we need to think the future. And I'm happy that my friend Irene and I agree, at least, even though we are on different sides of the divide, we agree that we have to invest in infrastructure in regard to dams, because that is the only way we can have ensured food security in the future. So that money, instead of just like we've said, having knee-jerk reactions, even if we were going to give relief, the government must think and have a clear plan on dams, like the president has already set out, and we must also have a clear climate change action plan that will involve the entire populace. I'm very excited about this session, because it is my second, and I believe now I've settled in a bit. The first one was a bit, you know, you have to learn where you guys go to the washrooms, where who parks where the speaker's office is, and Parliament has so much that happens in, and the running-ins, and but now I feel more settled, and I am open. I'm looking forward to the discussion on the floor of the House in regard to the 2/3 gender rule. The President wrote a recommendation through the Speaker of the National Assembly, so I know we will have a robust discussion on that, and I am very much invested in women's rights and progression in politics. So that is something that I'm looking forward to. I also have a pending amendment. I have an amendment bill on the Healthcare Act. It is proposing amendment to Section 7 to ensure that hospitals, private or public, do not demand for money prior to treating a patient, and that they do not hold a dead body of any Kenyan prior to perhaps a pending bill, because we have to protect the rights that are guaranteed in the Constitution. Health is one of them, and the right to human dignity is another one. So that is something that has been committed to the Speaker already. It's going to be taken to the Budget Committee, because it was yes, it's a money bill, and it is hard, Olive. When it's a money bill, it's hard, and I am hoping that I will be getting the support. I've already talked to the chair of budget, who's my good friend Dindi and my mentor in politics. So I am looking forward so that we can secure the interests of Kenyans, to have a robust discussion on the floor. I know we'll be having some, maybe some riffraffs here with my good friend Irene, throw some shots here and there. So, I mean, I'm up for it.
All right. Yeah. So thank you very much, ladies. Amendments to the Environment Act, amendments to the PFM, the Public Finance Management Act, and Healthcare Act. And I'm glad on some issues there's already bipartisan support. So to take a siasa kando,
yes,
things appear to be moving aside from the public rallies and the meetings. So we'll take time to smell the roses today. Don't forget there's that prayer meeting at the Nyayo National Stadium. To pray for rain. Thank you for joining us this morning. Unfortunately, Honorable Catherine Omanya was not able to join us. I look forward to hosting her. Something must have come up. She would just not show up. So I look forward to hosting her in future as well, as Jerry Minor, Kirinyaga Woman Rep, Miriam Masse, Chester South, Member of Parliament, and she's also Vice Chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. So we'll keep her number on speed dial. Irene Mayaka, nominated MP ODM. Have yourself a wonderful Men's Conference, Valentine or Galentine's.
How do you keep your toilets clean?
I use normal detergent and bleach for washing.
The detergent and bleach cleanless can leave behind yellowness, rust, and germs. Harpic's 10 times better cleaning compared to regular detergents and bleach, and kills 99.9% illness-causing germs in your toilet, including the COVID-19 virus.
Who am I? Why am I here? What will I be remembered for?
These questions come to a man at different stages of his life.
Early for some, late for others. Yet some men go through life groping for answers.
But fortunately for you, this doesn't have to be the case.
The second edition of Man Cave is an event
where you get to spend time with different men.
Learn from those who've gone ahead of you on the journey that is a man's life. Take a trip to the serene lake house, Tigoni, and experience the perfect boys getaway. Full of fun-filled games, cars, food, nyama choma, drinks, networking opportunities. 25th of February. Grab your tickets by going to www.kenyabars.com today. The Man Cave. It's a man's affair.
The baseline KPI for any PSG manager is winning. Not that success guarantees job security. 6 managers since 2012 have won 20 trophies and were not retained. Which puts the 7th manager, Christophe Galtier, in a somewhat unenviable position, perhaps poised to win the Ligue 1 title and still lose his job.
Grow your biashara by accessing loans, investment options, convenient banking, network opportunities, and so much more. Njoo tukujenge. Visit any one of our 93 branches countrywide. Family Bank is regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya.
In life, you could be eager to be employed or be self-employed. Either way, you do need the right skills. This is the point where Goodwell is essential to you. Goodwell is a professional social media platform that offers you earning and learning opportunities. It offers you great chances to grow in your career, learn new skills, showcase your existing skills, network with like-minded people, or get job opportunities. Nation Media Group, in partnership with Goodwell, aim at providing solutions to unemployed African youth, creating digital content that inspires young people to stretch themselves and get the right skills that are useful to employers and their peers. So, how can you be part of this? Every month we'll give you a chance to win $150 through our monthly challenge. Anyone can participate. Just look out for the challenges on NTV Kenya's social media platforms with the hashtag GigLife. Join the challenge now.
Hello, come on, sweetheart.
You like calling me late at night?
Because I'm a busy man, and you know I have to hustle for you, babe.
Then promise me this time you will marry me. You know it's been 6 years of dating.
I will marry you soon. You know I am building our future here in Japan.
Aye, but sinilona stories zako uko Nairobi.
That is editing, baby. You know I'm an editor.
Baba Samuel, unaongea na nani kwa simu saa saa 8 na mimi ni bibi yako? Haya.
Calm down, mama watoto.
To get Baba Fanuel Flatty, dial *812*807#. Skiza na